when I first watched that movie in the theater, I was like, oh, Catwoman, like I want to date Catwoman. And now I'm like, run the other way, man, run. Welcome back to the Movies Are Spiritual podcast. We are going through our favorite movies of all time, and we're going through my top 6 list. We are at number 2. I'm going to tell you what movie I picked, why I like it, and the spiritual themes I see in it, and then I'm going to boot it to these guys to kick my butt and tell me why I'm wrong. So my number 2 pick is, it's kind of obscure for the franchise it's in. The Dark
It's in a
Knight
franchise.
Rises.
Oh, okay. Oh, I get the cat reference.
Yes. Yes, he had a cat on his lap. I was like, oh, that's going to tie into the movie I'm about to reveal. He goes, Catwoman? I'm like, well, now that movie is bad, but it's so bad it's good. Okay, so why did I pick The Dark Knight Rises? This is the one that people love to hate from that trilogy. So I'm going to try to defend it just a little bit. I think it's a satisfying end to all of the character story arcs that were set up in the Nolan trilogy. You've got this epic battle in the streets. I mean, how often do we see an all-out brawl like this in the streets in a superhero film? At least at that point in time, because, I mean, this came out in, it was like, what, 2013 maybe? 2012?
Yeah, probably 13.
I mean, that's normal nowadays in Marvel films, but at this point in time, I mean, we hadn't seen a whole lot like that. And this was a gritty take. Like, you see Gotham in the snow. I found Bruce Wayne's story arc to be really intriguing because, I mean, he starts out with a guy who's basically got PTSD almost. I mean, he's been destroying himself for the sake of this mission, which he's doing for others so that nobody else has to live through their parents being murdered. And he's not really taking care of himself. I mean, if you look at him at the beginning of the movie, he hasn't really been active as Batman for quite some time. He's been depressed, holed up in the mansion. But as soon as he finds a mystery to investigate, when Catwoman breaks into his safe, I mean, he's back in Batman mode again, even though his body can't do it. I mean, his knees are shot. He goes to the doctor, and that guy's like, I don't know what you've been doing with your life, but you're basically in trouble here. And I've heard them do studies, like doctors try to explain how long someone could actually endure being Batman, and it's like 3 years. They think that's how long someone could be a vigilante like Batman in real life before they're done. Seems like that'd be harder than being an NFL linebacker or running back.
Oh, you're talking every night.
Yeah, with no recovery. So I just think Batman is an interesting character for that reason. But, I mean, you watch him almost on a death mission here because he doesn't fear death, and he thinks he's sacrificially doing this for other people. And that's part of what I think is intriguing because he does this, he's not taking care of himself. And Bane finally breaks his back. Now, when we meet Bane, you could kind of dive into the spiritual side of things. I think Bane is supposed to represent pure evil. You're supposed to hate this guy, where you couldn't quite do that with the Joker in the last film because he did some funny stuff like the pencil trick and things like that. So Joker makes you laugh a little bit and creeps you out. Bane, he's not going to make you laugh. So if you wanted to imagine what a demon would be like or something, that's what I think of when I see Bane. That's the closest you're going to get to pure evil as a human. I know there are a lot of plot holes in this film, but watching Bruce try to overcome after he breaks his back was still very moving to me, and that's the reason it's on this list. Bane breaks his back, I believe dislocates his vertebrae, and throws him in this prison pit in what looks like the Middle East. So Batman has to recover very quickly, maybe a little bit unrealistic, and he has to climb out of that pit that supposedly only one person has ever climbed out of. And he ends up having to do that without a rope because his fear of falling or not making it out of the pit is holding him back from actually being able to climb out of the pit. So in order to get out of the pit, he's got to ditch the rope and just do this on pure adrenaline, climb out of the pit. If he misses, if he misses a jump, he's going to die. So those survival instincts are going to kick in. And you just wonder, what is his motivation to get back to Gotham? I mean, he's not going to be in 100% shape here. I think it's interesting that he wants to go back to Gotham for other people. Nothing he does in this film is for himself. Another thing I noticed that I thought was interesting is like some of the other characters, the way they're difficult. I mean, Catwoman is a difficult character. She doesn't seem to have a lot of people skills in our context. She lives on the streets, and that's her context. She has a lot of run ins with dangerous people, and that doesn't necessarily translate well to a relationship or stability. But if you just watch the way Bruce handles her and the way he talks to her, he's always like, I see something in you, maybe that you don't see in yourself. He's like, I think you can be more. And I was really drawn to that because to me, that's almost like maybe how God sees people versus how we see people. And he's trying to help her better herself. So, what do you guys think? What do you guys think about this film? It's kind of an odd pick. Do you see some of the same things that I saw? And do you think it should be in the top Batman films?
I enjoyed it a lot when I saw it. I think of the three, I think the first one is still my favorite of the Nolan movies.
Begins.
I think we talked about this on one of the podcasts for the Batman. I love a dark, gloomy Gotham. But with this one here, I think I actually enjoyed this one more than The Dark Knight. I thought Dark Knight Rises was a really neat ending. It was really cool to see how he battled back, the fight scene at the end. I thought the Bane character was a really cool villain. And you get to see the Scarecrow again as he makes an appearance. And I thought the ending was pretty cool too. The reveal to Gordon that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and the way he did it with the note that you put the jacket on a little kid, and I did all that stuff, and that. So I thought that was really neat. And even the little ending at the end with Alfred, he's sitting at some cafe, he glances up, we see each other, we don't say a word, and it's exactly what happened. So I like it. I like your pick. I think it's a good one.
I enjoyed it. I would say it's my third favorite of the Nolan trilogy. Personally, I don't hate it like a lot of people do or rip on it. It just, out of the three, I'd say that was my third favorite. I guess when it comes to superhero movies, I'm more of a bubblegum type guy, if you want to say it. There's enough doom and gloom in real life. I want a little bit of comedy. That's why I loved Ben Affleck in that universe. And Gotham was very dark. And it was, it was a darker take, but he still quipped a lot. And, there were quips in the movie and even in the remake of the Justice League, even though that was so much better, there was still some funny stuff in it.
The Zack Snyder take?
Yeah, thank you. You can still laugh. I'm pretty sure in that third Batman one, or this movie we're talking about, I don't know if I laughed at all. I mean, and I don't want to take away from it. It was a great movie, but yeah, when it comes to would I put this in my top, no. Truthfully, I wouldn't put any of Nolan's, those three that are amazing. I wouldn't have them. They might be in my top 100.
Ooh.
I would say
ouch.
movies, not superhero. They definitely be up there in the superhero, but they would be behind a lot of Marvel stuff too.
Yeah, this movie does break you down. It makes you feel despair. So that is one of the reasons that it actually impacted me the most, because it actually gets so hard to watch. You almost want to turn it off. It makes you hurt, and then it
Sign of a
rebuilds
great
you.
movie.
So when I watched that movie, I was going through a lot of difficult stuff in my life. I was in Texas. That was right after I'd paralyzed my vocal cord, and I was a singer, so I couldn't sing. So I go watch this movie, and I'm watching Bruce Wayne have his life destroyed and his back destroyed, and he has to fight back. And I'm like tearing up because I'm thinking like, oh, that's what I have to do right now. Trying to be a musician, not being able to sing. And it hit me. So I identified with his story at that time. So a few years later, I was living in Kansas, And I was like, "Oh, have you guys seen Dark Knight Rises?" And these, some people, they were a little bit younger than me, just a few years. They're like, "Oh no, we've never seen that. Oh, we've got to have a party at my house and watch this movie." So I have all of them over, and I tell them, "Oh, it's kind of dark in the first half, but oh, it's going to be worth it in the last hour." And everybody's like super depressed halfway through. And that is what that movie does to you. But I keep watching it over and over again and reliving that for the pick me up in the last hour. It's one of those don't get down, get back up and fight back. Like you're going to get knocked down, but if you fight back, that's the kind of person that I want to be. So I watch that and it just speaks to me.
So basically, he wrote this movie off of a Chumbawamba song.
Perfect.
And I like it more.
Yes, it's gone up on your list.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I am aware of its deficiencies. I mean, on the one hand, Bane's motivation and Talia's motivation, they don't really make any sense. All they want to do is hold this city hostage for a long period of time and then blow it up. Like, what's the point of holding it hostage for a long time? To make people suffer? To make a point? I don't know. The motivation's weak. The way I could reconcile it in the spiritual side is I believe a lot of the early church fathers and ancient Jews, they believed Satan hated humans and these evil spirits were jealous of humans. So they would try to corrupt or kill humans because ultimately in the hierarchy, there's God and then humans come next. And the angels and demons are actually ultimately below humans in the hierarchy according to the Bible. So they're ticked. Some of them are jealous and they just want to make humans suffer. So you could look at it like Bane in the League of Shadows is kind of doing the same thing here. I also, the last time I watched this movie, now that I'm older and I have more relationship experience, I see the Batman Catwoman relationship a little differently. I watched Batman Returns recently too, and both
That's
of
one of my
these,
favorite Batman movies.
yeah, I enjoy it more than I used to. And
Mhm.
in both of those movies, I'm like, wait, am I supposed to be rooting for Batman to get with this girl? Because, I mean, she seems like a very unstable relationship
Yeah.
partner. Like, she might leave you at any minute, or she might, like, beat you. And I know Batman's a vigilante and he's doing some crazy stuff and beating people up. But if you look at the way he treats Selina in The Dark Knight Rises, she's not able to give the empathy back that he is giving her and other people. Like she almost can't give empathy. And that would scare me a little bit if I was trying to date someone. In her defense, she's living in trauma. So I don't think people can't overcome something like that. But it just makes you wonder like, is she really ready to settle down? So I could play devil's advocate and I could be like, man, kudos to him for being committed to her. Like, he is a really commendable human being for believing people are more than their trauma. And I do like
Mhm.
that idea. But I also watched it like, am I really supposed to be rooting for him? Because I'm afraid that like next week she's gonna leave him or something like that.
She's gonna
Yeah.
steal his watch and take off,
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the nature of the Batman
like
Catwoman
she.
relationships in the movies. They just
Yeah.
didn't establish that these two should be together and give me a reason to root for them. So because some of that motivation's not set up very strongly in the film, it is harder the older I get to go with it. Whereas when I first watched that movie in the theater back when I was living in Texas, like I mentioned, I was like, oh, Catwoman, like I want to date Catwoman. And now I'm like, run the other way, man, run.
I have one thing to add about your looking for like a spiritual theme in this movie when you're talking about why they are doing what they're doing to Gotham. It kind of reminds me of like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, the
Mhm.
city is so bad it has to be destroyed, and that's something that actually Bane had said.
That is,
You know,
yes, that is.
Gotham is a horrible, horrible place. So it has to be destroyed. And they take all the cops and they take all the lawyers and they take all of the gangsters and they basically put them through a trial find him guilty because the Scarecrow says so, and then they make him walk out onto a frozen river, and that's them destroying the city. So in a way, it's kind of like the whole Sodom Gomorrah aspect of it.
Yeah.
And another thing that I thought of that's kind of in along lines with Batman or Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle is, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but you said he's looking for the good in somebody, and he's hanging with somebody that he probably shouldn't, or most people wouldn't. It's almost kind of like a Jesus Mary Magdalene relationship in a way.
Mm-hmm.
He's the good guy, and he's seen with what a lot of people look at her and they don't. Why are you hanging out with her? This is the kind of person she is. This is the kind of person you are. And he's like, you know what? He sees he sees good in everybody. So like you said, maybe he can bring out this or whatever. So I think there's kind of a little bit of that
He sees the
in a
possibility.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I love this movie, because Batman in this movie sees the good in Gotham and in people that nobody else sees. And it is the darkest Batman movie. So, in the middle of this darkness and despair, he is seeing and finding good things. And I think that takes a really strong person to be able to see that, because I'd be depressed if I was in that prison. Like, I'd be cooked, man. But I
Mm-hmm.
almost think, when I'm thinking about his motivation and his sacrificing for the good at the expense of his own life and future, I look at him as, going back to Genesis, how humans had to leave the garden, and the whole idea is that the garden was this perfect, good place that humans were meant to live in. And ever since then, we have to live where we live now, in a messed up world, right? Well, I think the purpose of human beings is supposed to be to try to make the world better for people, make little pockets of Eden, like rebuild Eden and move towards a new Eden. That is exactly what I see Batman doing. That's what I think his heart is in this film on a spiritual level. So that's why I love it.
More power to you. Yeah. I'm not going to disagree with anybody's choices, probably. But yeah, I totally get that. And like I said, I did really enjoy the movie. I would watch it again 100%. But out of the three, it's probably my third. No.
Well, thank you guys for joining me, and we will be back soon with another quick cast. We'll see ya.
Gonna have a cat with me on this one, I think.
Oh, that's all right. We're going to talk about
Daphne's quiet.
it'll tie into the film.
Oh, the cat will?
Cat's eye.
Catwoman.
Cat's eye. Yeah, Catwoman. So bad it's good.
Garfield.
Everybody ready?
Garfield with Bill Murray.